Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another radio segment with Pensortier, the Coptic Youth radio program, 2 to 3 p.m. every Thursday. Your hosts for today, Thursday, March the 8th, 2012, Mina Gendi, Maggie Saman, Matthew Yunan, and yours truly, John Megala, on 3ZZZ 92.3 FM. There will be discussions on patience, commitment, and songs in my head. As always, today's podcast could be found on 3ZZZ.com.au for the next week. If you're not already a member or posting, please ensure that you hop online and join our Facebook page. Also, email feedback and requests on copticyouthradio@gmail.com. As for now, sit back and enjoy the coming hour.
Verse of the week. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 6. Better is the poor who walks in his integrity than one perverse in his ways, though he be rich.
Okay, guys, our first discussion is going to be about patience. So basically, it's something that is difficult to have with this day and age, with a lot of things that are happening and people that are stressed out on the roads and just our economic sort of position at the moment. So we're just going to discuss things and how we can sort of keep calm and have that patience and how it can help us in life.
Can I tell you what?
Yeah.
Can I say what really makes me impatient?
Yeah.
Okay, the opposite of patience. It's basically, you know, when you ask for a cup of coffee, and I love my coffee, and I think I've said this many times, and then I get a cold cup of coffee. I am like completely frustrated and completely impatient when I get a cold cup of coffee after I ask for an extra hot latte. So
yeah, that can be frustrating.
It's a bit frustrating. Does it not frustrate you, Mina?
Always, it's just, I just sit there and I'm like, I need my coffee first thing in the morning. Do not talk to me or do not try to have a meeting with me beforehand.
Yeah. I think one of my hardest things would be like, you're driving normally on the road, normal speed limit, you're obeying all the rules, and then someone just comes and, cuts you off or just beeps you or just tries to aggravate you for no reason. I think at that stage, a lot of people would sort of wanting to retaliate or sort of come down to that level and sort of, I think it's hard to...
I was reading something really interesting, and it basically talks about how in today's day and age, we basically expect things now and being done right now. And so we don't have time to wait. We don't have time to, we just need to have things done at this point in time. So we've become a society where we've just got so many options and the ability to have, to get things in return as well.
Do you think that's because, nowadays we're so dependent on technology these days? And, I want to go to Google right away and get that answer specifically to my question done within, the next 10 seconds.
Well, if people can watch us on TV, they would notice that 3 out of the 4 people sitting down have laptops, or I don't know what they're called. So, I mean, obviously we're used to getting things when we want and immediately. It's got to be that quick turnaround time.
Yeah, I'd just like to mention one verse from James chapter 1 verse 4. It says, "But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." So I think patience also is good for yourself and your soul, to sort of get aggravated and jump at the simplest thing or the smallest mistake someone's made, whether they meant it or not. Sort of say something about your character, it's good to sort of try and breathe and sort of be calm, and you have a more clearer sort of perspective of you know, what's going to happen.
And I think that's the ideal, and that's where I think everyone would like to get to. And hopefully during the Lent session or this Lent period, we can actually work towards that. But I guess I'm just wondering, if you're so far away from that and we're still irritated by these little things, what can we do to actually get to this ideal state? Like, what are the things that we should be doing?
I think prayer is very important, like to ask God. I know it's like just the simple things, just to ask God to help us, like with something like that, especially with situations that aggravate or sort of shut away, you know, just...
I think sometimes also walking away. Like if there's someone and you know you're going to jump and say something, I'm not saying, you know, you've just got to sometimes take a step back and just, you know, say, look, I'm going to just step back.
Sometimes the best thing is not to say nothing. Yep.
Sometimes,
I remember that movie ages ago, Bad Boys 2 or whatever, and everyone was going woosa and squeezing their earlobes. I thought that was absolutely hilarious, but it could be another method of meditation or something.
And it's true. And I was just going to say, like, maybe sometimes meditating on a verse every day is to sometimes, you know, you start the day, say, look, this is the verse that I'm going to remember, and this is what I'm going to walk out with, and this is what I'm going to take with me through the day. So if we are able to do that, it sometimes helps us to get through that day.
I don't know, Maddie, what do you do to meditate?
He Googled.
Drink coffee, tea.
Sorry.
I was wondering why you think that patience is such a difficult virtue to master. But I suppose to answer your question, meditation, I like to, when I'm going through a tough day, I like to just go for a walk by a lake or in a nice park, and just speak to God and contemplate on the events and why they're bothering me. And I find that God has created nature for in such an amazing way that if you are going through a tough time or you are experiencing difficulty or a tribulation in your life, and you just go for a walk in a nice park or along a nice lake or something,
just clear your head. Yep.
It's amazing how it does clear your head, like you said, John.
Definitely.
And I think,
and I think that's why God's created it for us.
Yeah.
There's reasons why God does things.
Yeah.
And I was also going to say just exercise as well, like, you know, running,
Gym.
you know, gym, doing something, kind of getting it all out there. That's actually really important.
Yeah.
And just to answer your question, Matt, you were saying, you know, why is it that we can't be patient? Like, why is it that we're at that stage? And I really think it's because we feel if we don't get what we want, we feel that we're wronged. Like, people are wronging us. This is my, you know,
they owe us something.
They owe us something. This is what's supposed to happen. How dare they?
Yep.
And so it kind of becomes more based on principle rather than anything else.
Yeah.
King Solomon says a really nice verse in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 8. He says, the end of a thing is better than its beginning. The patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. So you compare someone who's patient to someone who's proud. What do you think do you think of the relationship between someone who's patient and someone who's proud? Do you think there is a correlation, or like, I suppose, does someone necessarily need to be humble to be patient?
I think from being a little bit of a nerd. Yeah, really?
Sorry. I take it back. I have to be patient.
You know, like I was watching that new series, The Big Bang Theory.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, absolutely hilarious.
It is.
And Sheldon had come back home and all this dramatized, and turns around and goes, I am so upset. You know, I came in so late because I caught the bus and it stopped for other people.
How dare the bus stop and pick up other people?
Yeah, it's like, this is my bus. So I think, yes, you might be right. It's quite egoistic or being proud, you know, that actually can cause me to be somewhat impatient.
I like that correlation. Actually.
And I think that's where being humble is also fits in with this. I mean, the more humble you are, you have more patience, you're calm, you're clear-minded, you know how to sort of answer back, like you're not in that state of frustration where it can sort of cloud your judgments or answers.
I agree.
Yeah.
So there is a relationship then?
I think
if you are proud, then makes you become impatient.
Impatient, frustrated.
Yeah. So therefore, if you become a patient person, well, kind of, it calms you. You can kind of deal with these situations better. And if you think about stress and the kind of dangers that stress has anyway, it's probably ideal.
Thinking that you're right always, and you know they
or
owe
you
me
expect or you're owed something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah.
St. Peter poses a really good question. He says, for what credit, in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 20, he says, for what credit is it if, when you are beaten for your fault, you take it patiently? But when you do good and suffer, if you take it patiently, this is commendable before God. So he poses a question, but then he sort of answers it and says, well, but when you do good and suffer, if you take it patiently, then that's commendable before God. But if you're beaten for your own mistakes and your own faults, and so you're, I suppose, punished for your own downfall, then there's no reward in taking that patiently, because you deserved it in a way. But if you're patient in your tribulations, then that's commendable before God. And I suppose God himself taught us patience.
Yeah,
where
and
he was spat on,
Yep.
beaten, crucified, nailed to a cross, scourged and whipped, and you name it, by his own creation, and he was sinless, and yet he was patient through it all.
Can I just add one minor thing? I think also in becoming patient, it's like the little things. It's when you deal with traffic, when you deal with a bad coffee, when you deal with, irritating people on the train or transport. I think if you are able to deal with these situations patiently, I think it develops character. And then I think if you are given a very difficult situation, it really, it's because you're building on all of these small things, and we are kind of, we're judged upon what we do in the small things, and it reflects our personality in the small and the big things. So I think we always have to work at trying to be patient. So hopefully this time in Lent we can look at doing that and reflecting on that.
Yeah.
definitely. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And just to conclude, patience or long-suffering is one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit, as mentioned in Galatians chapter 5, verse 22, where he says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And, that sums it up. I suppose long-suffering and patience are one and the same.
Definitely.
Okay, I'm going to say this word, and I'm pretty sure everyone's going to run away when I say it. It's a very big word, fellas.
Go on.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Hang on. She's saying fella, so it's all three of us. So
Yeah.
It's
what's
all
the problem?
three of you.
Right, so you're saying this word doesn't apply to females?
Oh, it applies to everybody, but it really scares the fellas. So, it's called commitment. Oh, can you hear it? Everyone just went silence. Okay, but seriously, I want to talk about commitment. The idea is when we mention the word commitment, everyone runs to marriage, runs to relationship. They think that commitment only applies in these two aspects of life.
Can I just walk? Do I have to run?
But that's what people imagine, right? But really, commitment's about a lot of other things. It's about being committed to study and finishing your studies. It's about being committed to your family, and if your family are going through a hard time, it's helping them out.
Yep.
It's about being committed to your work, and even if you're not really liking it, you know that you've got responsibilities, so you've got to be committed. It's about being committed to the radio station and showing up every week, even though you've got work or you've got other things going on. Commitment is a huge thing, and I want to just challenge everyone, okay? Don't run away. Sit on your seats. But seriously, commitment is what we were called to do. We were called to be committed Christians. And I think to do that, it really has to be a way of life. So I'm opening it up.
I think everyday things. I mean, there's a lot of commitment, and I mean, just even waking up to go to work, being on time, being punctual. To me, commitment is not just doing something that you like or that it's a passion of yours. Sometimes there are things that we need to do as part of our life for family.
Absolutely.
And you're not going to, enjoy that a lot, but you have to be committed to doing that sort of stuff.
And I actually think if you are committed to doing something that you don't like and you still stick through it, that really says a lot about who you are as a person.
But hang on.
Yeah.
Like I went to a seminar recently, for example.
Sure.
And they said, do you love what you do and do what you love? And that just got me thinking a lot, okay? So when you say you're committed to something even though you don't enjoy it, does that mean, for example, if you go to work every morning, but you really don't want to be there, but you're committed to it just because it perhaps earns you income or whatever, is that the right attitude to have?
I think as a starting point, you have to have that attitude. Because the thing is, you know, you have to do all things to give glory to God anyway. At least that's the way that we're built to believe. So regardless of what it is, you're there and you're giving glory and you're working hard and doing whatever. And eventually you will be doing something. Like, we're not saying, oh, you've just got to kind of go through the grind and that's it. But if you've got a family, you've got bills to pay, you've got obligations. You can't walk away from those obligations.
And it's not necessarily like if you don't enjoy it. I mean, you can then be committed to or like have a goal each week to look for other things or other jobs or things that you do like, and it becomes part of your life. It's not. Yep.
I was just going to say, for example, people have this idea about missionary work, and they think, wow, sounds really fantastic. Sounds, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to go help the people, I'm going to go, you know, just be out there, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But you know what? To actually go out and do missionary work, it's really hard work. You know, we're talking about, I was talking to a friend and she went to Africa, and we were talking about, like, they walk 5 kilometres, you know, just to go get water. I mean, we are not talking, I mean, it's not, that's commitment.
I struggle to just go to the kitchen.
Seriously. Or like, so, I mean, I think there has to be a difference between, you know, having these expectations and actually being a committed person.
I understand that, right? But what I'm saying is, you could be committed in all areas of your life, right? But at the same time, if you're waking up every morning and you're really not enjoying, for example, your work, then why don't you go out and start looking for a new role where you can actually be more committed because you're enjoying it a lot more? Because if you're enjoying it a lot more, it means you're a lot more passionate about it, and you'll be a lot more committed.
Can I rebut what you're saying?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay. So, for example, to do that, though, you need to have commitment. So let's just say, you know, I did a degree. It's really not working out for me. I really feel it's just not happening. Okay, but now I've decided I want to be a barista. So I want to make coffee. Do you like this coffee theme that I'm going through? So, okay, to do this, I can't just have this idea. I just want to make coffee. I love making coffee. It's tremendous. And what? Just sit there and complain about my work? No, I have to be committed. Go find a coffee school and learn how to make coffee. Like, you've got to have commitment in anything that you want to do. It's fine to acknowledge that you're not happy in your current state of life, but to make a change or change your direction, you have to be committed to make that change.
But you also need, like, when you have a look at these things, you know, being committed, it's sometimes in relation to a person being stuck on, I'm committed to my commitment more than I am committed to the cause or to the aspect. Like, for example, we have a lot of people who, you know, will say, I want to do such and such a course, the barista course. And then I get so committed and stuck into this barista course, and even if I'm not going to succeed at it, I'm just doing it anyway because I committed to do committing. And sometimes you need to make a clear decision between the two.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I was trying to get at. I suppose someone who's in a certain career path or in a certain whatever relationship, I suppose at the early stages, whatever, just because the fact they've made a commitment in their mind or their mindset is set to, well, I want to see this through, doesn't mean it's necessarily the right path for them. Do you know what I mean? If they're really not enjoying whatever that case might be, is it really the right thing for them?
And look, it may not be.
Do you know what I mean? When I say relationship, I mean obviously pre-marriage. I'm not.
And you know what? It goes. See, the thing is, a lot of people, when we say relationship, the main focus is marriage, but it's not. The relationship can be between you and another person, just
you and God.
Friendship, you and God, you and your career, you and your job. So that you have some sort of relation there. And I tell people, the primary things that if you want to succeed in a relationship of any sort, one, You need to be give
Committed.
good communication.
Yep, and commit.
Yeah, but usually commitment is part 2, and also you need to be willing to compromise.
So like 3 C's. That's
Yeah,
what kept
exactly.
C's.
And if you don't commit as part of those 3, you can't succeed in a relationship. Whether it be with a partner, whether it be with a job, or whether it be with just God or anybody else.
But I think it also brings us to like our spiritual life as well. Like in terms of commitment, you know, sometimes it's really hard to wake up really early to go to church on Sundays.
Yeah.
Or, you know, sometimes you're like, you know, you get from work or from study and you've got an exam. It's really hard to kind of sit back and say, oh, you know what, I've got to read the Bible. It's hard to do that, right? But it's your level of commitment. So if you say to yourself, you know what, I'm committed to my relationship with God, then frankly, you are going to wake up at 7 or 6 o'clock in the morning to get ready and go to Mass. You are going to wake up or stay back, you know, after you've studied and it's really late, and you're going to do that. And I think God really values that. So I think commitment is just, we're called to be committed people and I think in everything that we do. I was reading a book and it was just basically talking about, you know, commitment is something that has now fallen off the wayside just a little bit. And it's important to get that back and to be a committed individual.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really good point, because there's so many people out there, and I mean, we all probably fall into the trap at some stage in our lives where we say, I can't wake up early for church, or I can't wake up early to pray before work or uni or whatever the case might be. I'm really tired, I just want to go straight to sleep, I've had a long day, I don't want to stand up and pray.
Absolutely.
But yet, if we were to wake up early for a job interview, or if we were to wake up early because we had a really important meeting at work, or if we were to wake up early because we had a date that we were going on, a breakfast date, or whatever the case might be, no qualms about it, we'll wake up. You know what I mean? We'll be there early, ready for this massive appointment that we've got. Why is it that God isn't our number one when he really should be?
He should be.
Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And I think if you make God number one and you are committed to that, I think everything else will fall into place.
Yeah.
But I just want to say the opposite of commitment is a very, well, I guess, no, I think if we don't have commitment, we'll fall into this other category, and it's another C word. Are you guys ready? Ready? Complacency. We become complacent. And that's just kind of, you know, breezing through life, just kind of getting by. And I think, you know, that kind of just shows...
It's what everyone refers to as go with the flow.
That's it. I like it. Go with the flow. So let's not go with the flow. Let's be committed.
So, you know, when you wake up in the morning and you have that beautiful time where you're just trying to prepare yourself and stuff, and then all of a sudden you get that song that just pops in your head and just doesn't go away.
Like, what's the Wiggles song?
I don't know. I don't actually have any kids and I don't know that song.
Apparently that gets stuck in people's heads.
Yeah, no, I just hear in the morning, like every once in a while, I walk into work and I'm like going, I am so irritated and I've got this song. Yeah, apparently there's a website that you can actually go to that can try to replace the song with another song. But, you know, do you know that sensation that you get, or that feeling that you get? And it's
or if
just...
someone says something or a catchphrase and you
Yes.
just can't get it out of your mind. It's kind of like there, and it's there for like the whole day. What's with that?
Yeah, that
What's
gets
with
really
that?
irritating. I don't know, Maddie, what experiences do you...
Well, I recently had this hymn in Arabic called Amdah fil Batul, which I think means I praise the Virgin or something. And especially the chorus was really stuck in my head. Like, Sabani, Sabani, Hobek. I'm thinking about it now, it's just stuck in my head. I mean, I love that hymn. It's beautiful.
Lovely.
Yeah, and you know what? It's sometimes not always a bad thing. Like, as much as you do wake up in the morning and you go, oh man, that's annoying. But, you know, sometimes I have that same feeling when I walk out of church and, you know, you've got, you know, whether it's the Psalm 51 or something that's just in there.
Absolutely.
And, you know, how do we actually pose our minds to actually do that? Any
Well,
ideas?
the mind is like a huge thing, and it retains information like you wouldn't believe.
Fair dinkum.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Wow.
Especially around, like, also, during the fasting and the Easter period where, you go to church and a lot of the prayers are repeating the same
That's
hymns.
true.
You go home, and it's still ringing in your head until the next day, until the next time. Yes.
Yeah, especially like what I really love about Passion Week in particular, when you're at church and they repeat Thuk Tetigon maybe 4 or 5 times through that you go home and it's still ringing Thuk Tetigon
for every hour.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 5 hours in
But
the certain prayer.
listening and hearing that, you go home and it's ringing in your head and you're still sitting there. I know sometimes I go home and if I'm, just reading through a magazine and I can't concentrate on the magazine because...
You're thinking of Thuk Tetigon?
Thuk Tetigon.
Can I,
It's amazing because it's first, 3rd, 6th, 9th and 11th hour.
So that's 5 times.
5 times
And
12.
times 12,
60 times that we say
wow.
60 times a day.
You know what this kind of makes me think
it.
about?
Church prayer alone.
I'm just thinking, so it's straight because we retain information, right?
Yep.
But it's also, what about like things that we say to ourselves constantly, whether it be positive or negative things that we talk about, I can't do it, I just can't do it, or I'm feeling bad, or, things that we keep on saying to our mind all the time. Because I'm just thinking, like, if you retain like a good song, like you retain that hymn and it probably uplifts you, makes you feel really good about yourself, that kind of thing. But if you retain something saying, I'm just feeling awful, feeling down, and you keep on, reiterating that in your mind over and over again.
Based on, actually come to think of that, have you ever noticed that people who want to be miserable just tend to remain miserable? Those who seem like that everything keeps on going wrong for them, it keeps on going wrong. Maybe it's not just because just life happens to go wrong, but sometimes it's because I've actually built myself around that concept.
I agree.
Like when I came to in Melbourne here, it was, to me, I was always stressed out, always running around, always working, always
until
busy.
You found us.
And then I came to when I came to Melbourne, I learnt how to get closer to the church and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And at that point, I started to find, hang on, I'm getting a lot of free time.
Yeah.
Even though I was also still doing my studies and working full time, I still managed to start to find free time.
Yeah.
I started to see the good in things. It's not, I'm always on the buzz that I have to be on the minute, sorting out things, this and that. I'm actually starting to realize, no, I can actually just relax, take a breather. If things go wrong, I can resolve them. I just have to look at the bigger picture and see if I can find it. And if you start thinking of a different concept and a different way,
looking at things from a different perspective, I think.
But
that's
we have
what
to,
it's all
like
about.
you said, we have to train ourselves to believe in that.
Got to do that, and I think it's kind of like that phrase, the glass half full, glass half empty. Remember, that it's kind of that. So you've got to change your perspective, and I just want to say, I think it's all about choice. All of it is about choice, and that's a hard thing. So you've got to make that choice, and you've got to take responsibility. Again, here it comes up again. But you've just got to make that choice and say, hey, I'm going to change my perspective. And I think that's what's the key. And I like that, actually.
Yeah, definitely. And it reminds me of that really great story that I remember we shared on air a while back about Jerry. And it starts off, I think, saying about Jerry's the kind of guy you love to hate or something. But... Or you just couldn't hate because you love him so much because he's always so positive. And the story goes on that he actually has an incident where he doesn't close the back door of the store, and he actually has a gun held at him, I think, or a knife or something. But he survives, and he's in hospital, and the nurses don't think he's going to make it. But he wakes up suddenly. He says, "Operate on me as if I'm alive, because." I want to get through this. Yeah. And finally, when he does make it, his mate who had lost touch with him went up to him and asked him, and they said, "So how was it that you always managed to stay positive and always had a smile on your face?" And he said, "Well, I wake up every morning and I have 2 choices. I have the choice to either be positive, or to be negative. So every morning I wake up and I say, well, I'm going to be positive and I'm going to have a great day."
Yeah.
So, and like you said, it is all about choices.
Definitely. I mean, and we have to try and, I mean, as Mina was saying, some people choose to look at the things that are negative in any situation. We have to sort of realise that everyone's got problems, and some bigger than others, but, you know, we've all got one God which is bigger than all these problems. And also when we're praying, we have to not just be the type who are just sort of reading words as if it's like a sort of chore we have to do each day, but understanding the words and memorising passages and repeating
and
that.
meditating on
and
those
especially
words.
repeating, you know, certain passages in certain times, certain difficulties. That's really important in prayer, I think.
Yeah, and you touched on a really good point, that we go through difficult times and tribulation sometimes. And the thing is that God never promised us an easy life. In fact, he actually promised the opposite. He said, in the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world.
Exactly.
Right? And in 1 Corinthians, I think it's 1 Corinthians 10:13, I think he says that he will not allow us to be, St. Paul says, God will not allow us to be tempted beyond our capabilities. And even with that, he will find us the way of escape. So it really is amazing that God actually promises us a difficult life, but he also promises us that he'll get us through it.
Yeah, definitely. We go through life, but we also grow through life, and we have to go through these tribulations. It's not meant to be easy, and yeah.
And what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger.
That's right.
And I also think, like, if we think about these things, we need to also look at the environment we surround ourselves by.
Absolutely.
You know, if I go to church and I'm listening to Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, I'm going to go home and think the exact same thing and, you know, try to maintain, you know, the peace, or, you know, reflect on those things that are surrounding me. Now, if I'm surrounded by nothing but misery, I'm going to be reflecting on nothing but misery. So,
Definitely.
I don't know, like, do you reckon we should make sure that we influence the environment that surrounds us?
I think you've got to influence yourself first in order to be able to influence the environment around you. So once you've kind of got a grasp on that, then I think everything else will just change. You know how they say, oh, I really like being around this person. It's really nice to be around them. And I think that comes from...
Yeah, I think I get that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, Maddie. Absolutely. And I think it's because of that, you know, that perception that you give over to other people. People can see it. When you're kind of a cheerful, kind of easygoing person, people want to be around and surrounded by people like that.